Back here at Radio Row, Super Bowl 48, and we ran into a 3-time Super Bowl champion, played in 4 Super Bowl with the New England Patriots, and that's our good friend from 610 Radio down in Houston, and that is Ted Johnson. Ted, great to see you again.
Zach, it's good to see you, buddy. How you been?
I've been great. It's we had you on a little bit a few weeks ago talking some football, and it's always great to see you down here on Radio Row. And it's a cold weather game coming up on Sunday, not as bad as most people would have thought maybe 4 months ago, as it's supposed to get into the high 30s, maybe low 40s. And you played in some cold weather games in Foxborough, one of those being the Snowball back in 2001, the Tuck Rule game.
That's right.
Take me back to that game and what you remember from it.
Oh, gosh, Zach, it was, man, Oakland Raiders, and I think it was the divisional round.
Yes.
And so, man, look, it was Charles Woodson. He hits Tom Brady. It happened right in front of me. Tom, the ball's fumbled. It's on the ground, and Greg Beekert, a former teammate of mine at Colorado University, who was the middle linebacker for the Raiders at the time, Charles Woodson knocks the ball out of Tom. Beekert jumps on the ball, and I'm thinking, my gosh, that was it for us. And I thought it was done. And then all of a sudden, a rule I never even heard of, the Tuck Rule, all of a sudden comes out of nowhere, and we retain possession. We go down and score. Vinatieri, don't forget, a lot of, and I get, I've talked to
as clutch as it gets.
I've talked to guys, Zach, from that team, and Beekert, but some other guys on that team, Rich Gannon, and they all bust my balls, and I get why they would. But the thing I always tell them is, hey, Vinatieri had to kick 2 field goals in the driving snow, one to preserve a tie and one to win in overtime. You guys still could have beat us. So I remind them of that. That they, even though that rule went, that play went in our favor, the Tuck Rule, they still could have stopped us. But yeah, that, a lot of people say, look, that game propelled us into what some people consider a dynasty, after that.
Oh, no, definitely a dynasty. And I remember in that game when there was a timeout before the field goal, you saw the linemen just shoveling away the snow, and then within seconds, the snow came right back. And then another cold game, I believe it was the coldest game at Foxborough for a playoff game, was the game against the Tennessee Titans in the divisional round.
I was talking to some of those guys earlier about that. Derek Mason, I've talked to
that's as cold as it gets.
That was brutal. I mean, that was a brutal game. So, yeah, we've played in cold games. I played in a lot of cold games. Now, Peyton has played in some cold games. In fact, the divisional round in 2004, the last season I played in, 2004, the Indianapolis Colts came in with Peyton Manning, and they were averaging over 500 yards offense, over 40 points a game, Zach. And they were a vaunted offense. I mean, with Peyton, you had Edgerrin James, you had Marvin Harrison, you had Reggie Wayne, you had Dallas Clark, you had Brandon Stokely. I mean, a tough offense coming in, and it was snowy, wet, cold conditions. And you know what? This was kind of the beginning of the end for the defenses when it came to hitting guys downfield. We were very aggressive on their receivers. And Bill Polian, who was the general
complaining.
manager. Yeah, Bill Polian, who was on the competition committee, got the rules changed. So you can't, there was no illegal contact 5 yards down the field because he did not like how we handled those receivers. They came in averaging, like I said, over 40 points a game. We held them to 3. And that was a cold, wet, sloppy game. And we really got up in those receivers' grills. And we were able to do it, Zach. Well, what key to stopping Peyton, just real quick, besides being cold weather, because I do think that affects them, is you got to always have 2 safeties deep, okay? So cover 2, cover 4, cover 5, which is 2 deep man under. So you always want to have two safeties deep to protect on the big play. You got to stop the running game with 7 guys then, okay? So Seattle's got to, if to stop Noshawn Marino with 7 guys is going to be the key. That'll always allow them to keep 2 safeties deep. That's how we beat Peyton. And Zach, I told you before we went on, the 7 times I played Peyton when he was in Indianapolis, we're 7-0 against him, and it was a very simple formula. And it was basically always keeping 2 safeties deep, stopping the running game with 7 guys, mixing in some variation of coverages and disguising it to keep them off balance. That's ultimately how we did it.
And those are some great games, the Pats-Colts games back in the day, whether it was the goal line stand that we talked about last year at Radio Row, and Willie McGinnis saw right off Ted Washington, and boom, they stuffed James at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I was in on that play too.
You were too. Yeah. The 3-pick game that Ty Law had, and Rodney Harrison also caught a pick on that one as well. But Peyton Manning, he's so great at his craft. He's really remarkable. And this year, he has so many good receivers, Welker, Thomas, Decker. What's the toughest part about preparing for Peyton Manning? Because he's almost perfect, besides those times when he played you in your defense.
Yeah, Zach, I think the toughest thing is he's relentless, man. He just keeps coming at you. He doesn't die. It doesn't matter if you're up, you got a comfortable lead on him. He keeps coming back. He keeps coming back. And he will find you. He will keep testing you. you have to be very diligent in your technique. You got to constantly be on your P's and Q's as far as rerouting guys, making sure you're supposed to be where you need to be. He will find the weakness in the defense if you get sloppy with your technique. He will find the guy. He's relentless in what he does. And a lot of it comes down to breaking the game into situations. Third down, red zone. If you can kind of picture it in third down. Who does he like to go to in third down? A lot of times it's Wes Welker. He's been hurt, but a lot of times it's Wes Welker. So you double team Wes Welker in the slot on third down. You get down to the red zone. Who does he like to go to? It's Julius Thomas. You get to the red zone, double team Julius Thomas. You put Richard Sherman on Demaryius Thomas, and you say you hope that Sherman can do his thing there, but you got to, in certain situations, you play to what their tendencies are, and the tendency is to go to Welker on third down and go to Julius Thomas in the red zone and take your chances with the other guys.
We're talking a 3-time Super Bowl champion, Ted Johnson, and if you also want to have a successful day going up against Peyton Manning, you need to run the football, go on those long drives, and punch it in the red zone. And you guys had Corey Dillon in that 2003-2004 Super Bowl. Antoine Smith and Kevin Falk were also clutch back in 2001. However, on the other side for Seattle, they have beast mode in Marshawn Lynch. He has to get the ball running on Sunday if they want any chance to win this game.
Yeah, no question about it. And Peyton's been very good. If you look at the games recently, playing keep away. You talk about these drives they go on. It's
AFC Championship game. They kept Brady off the field the whole game.
It's insane. That's insane. So who's going to win the keep away game? Obviously Seattle wants to win that game. That's obviously the best chance you have against Peyton is to make sure his butt is on the sideline most times. So beast mode is in Marshawn Lynch. He's such a dynamic player. He really is. He's got Curtis Martin. Zach was one of the best players I ever played with and against because we were in the draft class in New England, 1995. By the way, the draft class in 1995 for the Patriots, pretty incredible. We had Ty Law and then Ty Law in the first round, Curtis Martin in the second round. I went in the third round. I went in the second round. Pretty incredible. But yeah, beast mode. You better have an answer for him. And he can. And here's the thing: they will keep feeding him the rock. Even if he's not having a productive day, they will keep giving it to him until he breaks one. And Denver's defense, though, Zach, I got to tell you, their get-right game, after they lost to the San Diego Chargers, John Elway, and I've talked to guys that cover the team in Denver, John Elway addressed the team twice this year. Okay, when you have a front office guy, it's unheard of to have a front office guy address the team.
But when John Elway speaks, you listen.
So after the first time he talked to the team this year was after the second preseason game when the Broncos played the Seattle Seahawks. They lost 40-10, and they got an ass chewing from John Elway. And then the second time he addressed the team was after they lost to San Diego in early December. After they lost that game to San Diego, the defense is not allowed more than 20 points the rest of the way. So the Denver defense is playing much, much better without Von Miller, without Kevin Vickerson, without Chris Harris. So they're playing with a lot of confidence, and that's half of it. Defense, Zach, a lot of it is you don't have to maybe have the most dominating players, but if your unit is playing with confidence, that goes a long way.
You see Denver, and Champ Bailey has been a legendary cornerback, going to be a Hall of Famer, and there's some pretty good defensive players on this Denver team, and they have been coming on as of late, just like you mentioned. How important is it for Champ Bailey to seal off his legacy, which could be maybe his final year in the NFL because he's towards the end of his career, and get that Super Bowl ring?
I think, we all want to go out on top. I essentially did. The last game I ever played in was the last Super Bowl we had won in 2004, the 2005 Super Bowl in Jacksonville. So for a guy like Champ, who's had a distinguished career, nothing would be better for him to have a big play, a game-changing play, something like Richard Sherman had, 2 weeks ago in the NFC Championship. So, yeah, Champ Bailey, who's been an unbelievable player for so long. Win, lose, or draw, the guy has nothing to be ashamed of. He can hold his head high because he has been one of the more dominating players at his position in the last, 10, 15 years.
A few more questions with Ted Johnson on Radio Row in New York at the Sheraton. Seattle Seahawks and Denver Broncos playing in the Super Bowl. And early on in your career, Pete Carroll was your head coach. What do you remember about playing under Pete Carroll, and what did you learn from him?
Yeah, Pete was – you talk about the nicest guy that's ever coached me. Pete was the nicest guy. Type A personality, a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, always about if you think it will happen kind of thing. A guy around positive thinking. And I appreciate that. I like that. Now, What he didn't have then that he has now, and I've talked to a lot of guys from Seattle, is that there's more of a culture of accountability now. So Zach, he's still that high energy guy, still that very engaging guy, very approachable, Zach. I mean, very approachable guy, and I always appreciate that. But now he's got a culture of accountability. They churn that roster more than any other roster in the NFL. Guys are coming in and out, in and out. So if you're a player on that team and you're watching that, you know what? They're not afraid to tinker with that personnel. They're not afraid to tinker with that roster. If somebody's not getting it done, they put somebody else out there. That's been the biggest difference. Besides the fact, let's admit it, Russell Wilson's been a huge pickup for them in the third round last year. But also, Pete deciding to hold guys more accountable. I think this is his third tour around the NFL. First with the Jets, New England. Now he's back with Seattle for the third time being the head coach in the NFL. He's learned his lesson from the previous 2 stints, and it's really paying off.
He has a lot of guts. That's the one thing that always stands out to me when you look at Pete Carroll, even going back to his USC days. But even this year, that fourth down play, not taking the field goal, throwing that touchdown up top, and that was a big play in defeating the San Francisco 49ers in his own house at the 12th man in Seattle. And also, we have to go back to that decision. Matt Flynn got a big contract, in walks Russell Wilson, and boom, he's the starting quarterback, and not many people thought that was going to happen.
Well, yeah, Zach. I mean, there's a lot of defining moments maybe for all of us in our own lives. You think about, decisions we've made. It's paid dividends, and you take a chance. I always tell people in life, I like a high on base percentage. I like to just get on base no matter how I do. But every now and then, I like to swing for the fences. Pete's done that. Pete swung for the fences, and he decided to roll the dice with Russell Wilson and go against what the maybe most people would do. It's like to justify paying Matt Flynn all that money, they feel like they got to play him. Heck, Pete said, forget that. We're going to put the best guy out there, and it's paid dividends. Bill Belichick put in Tom Brady, when that was maybe an unpopular move, but he stuck to his guns. He did that. You saw what, Jim Harbaugh has done in San Francisco by putting Kaepernick out there. So coaches sometimes, that's why they get paid the big money, is to make tough decisions like that, and it's really paid off for Pete.
2 more, and then we'll let you run. Richard Sherman, we have to talk about him. He's the most loquacious corner in the game, and he's keep on yapping even since that NFC Championship game, and he has been saying a lot throughout the last few weeks. What was your take on what he said after the game on the field to Aaron Andrews? Yeah,
Zach, it's not my cup of tea. I'm not down with that. That's not something I wouldn't want that on my team. I would not I would not. A guy like that is just, to me, it's too much. I mean, it's just like, and I come from a culture in New England where, it's all about the team.
Can't say
and
anything
a guy
either.
does that, it's like it brings so much attention to him and just solely on him. I don't have a lot of patience for it. I don't care how good he is. Honestly, I wouldn't want to play with a guy like that.
What would Belichick do if a player like Richard Sherman did that after the game? Because we saw what he did to Wes Welker when he had that whole foot fetish jokes to Rex Ryan before that playoff game.
Yeah, he'd probably, honestly, he'd have a diminished role at least to start the next game. He sends them. You want to send a message, Zach, to somebody? Demote him, bench him, take away his reps, and that'll get a guy's attention. Yeah, that stuff. Hey, Pete encourages that, and he's okay with that, and it works for Pete. But for our teams in New England under Belichick, that cake doesn't bake, man.
Before we let you run, I know that concussions and after the career has been a big part of your life, and you really turned it around, and you look great, you sound great, and now you're a killer star on the radio, and you're also doing some work with low T and all that other stuff. So tell us what you're doing right now. And we always talk to Eric Spitz, and you're killing it at CBS.
Oh no, that's and I'm so grateful for the opportunities at CBS. I got the people down in Houston. I fooled them into giving me my own nighttime show down there. I've really enjoyed radio, Zach. Really enjoyed it. And so I'm grateful for that. More, the confidence is starting to build. You find that fine line of being critical of players without taking it personal. So having a lot of fun. Very, very grateful for the opportunities.
Well, we're colleagues, actually, because I did some job for the network this year, covering the Heisman and doing some stringer reports for Temple. So
yeah, CBS is the best. And I've enjoyed all my time doing that. And anytime you want me to come on, you got my number. You call me, buddy, okay?
Well, you're always great. We appreciate a few minutes. Great seeing you.
You got it, buddy. Good seeing you.